There's a small problem amongst historians of the Roman army and amongst self-styled military historians in general regarding, of all things, basic military concepts. These matters are the sort of stuff that is absorbed by soldiers during and prior to initial entry training, not the sort of thing anyone would ever learn at an institution of higher learning unless they were genuinely interested in the salient aspects of the military and the life it provides. This historian's lack of formal military institutional tradition calls into question the many comparisons they make between ancient army traditions and modern army traditions. I'm an old soldier with no formal training in historiography, and as I implied earlier, often find myself disagreeing with some of the conclusions reached by stylish military historians. Simply put, there are things that just don't change regarding Army life. Many military traditions are deeply rooted in the practical-minded military considerations from an earlier epoch. This video is to the historians who've never lived the military life. Things can't get any more basic than this, or in the words of a wiser man than me, super jumbo Crayola style. Today we are covering three separate but related military concepts of positions, details, and tasks. This video builds upon my last video, so if you haven't watched it, I suggest you start there before proceeding with this one. I'll place a link in the box above. Most military historians have no genuine interest in the military as such, and as a result, they have a tendency to confuse and improperly transliterate military organizational functions between historic and modern times. My first video separated the concepts of rank, grade, and position. This video will zoom in on that last concept and introduce the subordinate concepts of detail and task. There are a lot of different hats in the military, and it's not uncommon for a soldier of any rank to wear more than one hat at a time. It is common knowledge that the senior Army officers are often formally appointed to multiple positions at once. Here is a simple, if subtle, example. On the small overseas post where I spent much of my uniform time, the senior officer at the post was both the regimental commander and the post commander. This is a sort of important organizational detail that bores some ilk of historians. Yet the implications of this detail like this can be profound. I would argue that that importance increases when moving backwards through history. There's something important to keep in mind here. Position as a military concept can be either formal or informal. The modern military usually requiring a certain level of qualification prior to appointment to certain positions. These required qualifications for appointment are often marked with a badge. Historically, given the nature of military technology, there was less fuss over individual military qualification prior to accession into a unit. My comments in this video address the Roman army from about 50 BC to about 100 AD, roughly correlating from Caesar's conquest of Gaul to the death of Nerva. A formal appointment carries with it a great deal of paperwork and the weight of an entire legal apparatus. The senior officers of the legion were all appointed by a formal legal apparatus with its basis in Rome. This includes the legion commander, the deputy commander, and the small number of associated staff officers. The higher grade centurion, that being the commander of an independent cohort of auxiliary soldiers, like the unit stationed at Vindolanda in Roman Britain, was undoubtedly appointed through the legal apparatus in Rome. In fact, all grades of centurion, from the lowest 10th cohort on up, was done via formal legal appointment, undoubtedly involving the recommendation of the legion commander. It remains unclear how centurions, after making rank, earned their command position within the legion. It was possible for a provincial governor to bestow centurion rank should the need arise. The appointment to command a specific century might have been either a formal or semi-formal appointment. The fact is, we just don't know. Evidence suggests that appointments to the first cohort were more prestigious and probably carried more responsibility than positional appointments to the remaining cohorts. In any case, Rome's or the provincial governor's involvement in this positioning is unclear. Perhaps accepting the appointment to the first cohort, it would make sense for the Legion commander to exercise control over the final positioning of the Legion's centurions. Leaving aside the centurions, what is not clear is how the centurions' primary assistants, the principales, achieved their appointments to their position. These appointments were probably command-driven appointments. However, who did the appointing, the Legion commander, a Legion staff officer, or the centurion, is not clear. It would make sense for these positional assignments to be at the very least tracked and recorded by the Legion commander's staff. Part of the reason I've restricted the time frame of this video from 50 BC to 100 AD relates to the confusing issues of the so-called immunes. The subject of the immunes as a whole will be dealt with at a later time. Considering the time frame, we can infer that the immunes-like position within the Legion structure were not command-driven appointments, though perhaps some legionaries took it upon themselves to always volunteer for certain routine duties. The primary job of a century's tertiarius was to maintain the century's duty roster. This roster would list the duty to which all legionaries in the century were assigned. This would include everything from escort duty to sentry duty to cleaning out the latrines and everything in between. If a job needed to be done, it would be on the duty roster. That is to say that the tertiarius detailed soldiers to their task. It's only human to be better at some tasks than others. Some soldiers, after years of service in the Legion, would have developed a measure of skill related to a duty that they had performed over and over. Thus, we can conjecture that there was an esprit that developed from being good at one or more of the tasks on the duty roster. However, these soldiers had yet to gain any formal big army recognition of their skill at that duty. This represents what might be called a pop assignment. I'm going to characterize this military necessity with a story. All the routine duties are being attended to, and there's hardly anyone left hanging around the sentry's command post. Suddenly, a messenger arrives and exchanges hurried words with the tertiarius. The tertiarius calls Carl over, and you can see them talking. Carl comes back and tells you to grab your equipment and follow him. Carl has just been given a non-routine positional appointment as a detail leader. Who knows what detail has to be seen to? Tasks are the individual actions that must be completed to accomplish a mission or an assignment. These tasks may be anything from individual educational goals to a group effort to count and catalog equipment. It remains a mystery as to what the very day-to-day tasks of the average Roman legionary were. These tasks would surely vary depending on the disposition of the legion itself. Was the legion on campaign, or was it in its winter quarters? Some tasks can be inferred given the nature of Roman technology. However, these inferences can only be taken so far. A further exploration of this subject of military crafts will have to wait for another time. Position is a broad military concept. It is a general term that encompasses three separate organizational levels of the Roman army: senatorial, legion, and century. The Roman army of the late Republic and early Empire, as an organization, maintained a complex system of formal, semi-formal, and informal appointments. And that's all we have time for today. This has been an independent production for YouTube by Goblin, February 2022. All rights reserved. I hope this was useful.